Our last review of the day is going to be for a film called The Complete or A Complete Unknown there. And it is a biopic film about the life of Bob Dylan here. You have Timothée Chalamet, who is playing Bob Dylan in this. And this film is directed by James Mangold, who is no stranger to doing biopics. He did the famous Walk the Line, which was the movie about the life and times of Johnny Cash, who Johnny Cash is actually also in this movie. Not the real life Johnny Cash, but he's been dead. That'd be crazy. He's been dead for some years. But the figure there is in here. He's played by Boyd Holbrook, who he was actually in another Mango film. He was in Logan there, and Boyd Holbrook actually does a pretty good job there as Johnny Cash. He actually shows up pretty good. And much like with James Mango when he did Walk the Line, which was about Johnny Cash, a lot of that kind of was the template for a lot of biopic films there, like movies like Ray. Even so much so, there was even a parody film of it called Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which laid out all the ways in which these biopics are the same, which is like you see the early life
Mhm.
of the musician and then they get famous, then they get addicted to some drugs, then they get hugely popular, then they fall off and then go to rehab and then get healthy and then boom, they're back on top again. Like it all
Yeah.
followed the same kind of pattern there. And it was kind of just crazy the way they kind of like so basically, when Walk Hard came out, everybody went like, "Oh shit!" Like these are kind of all the same. They all follow
Yeah,
the
they're
same kind
all
of
extremely predictable.
yeah. But here it focuses on with a complete unknown, more of a more Pacific time in the life of Bob Dylan. It doesn't chronicle like his whole entire life. It starts off. The movie begins with 1961 of him like as a young kid and then of how he kind of rises to prominence, but then there's like a time skip that happens where it's 1965 and then boom, he's already a mega superstar. And if people don't know Bob Dylan began as a legendary folk singer, then he got more progressive into hard rock, and he incorporated that into his music, and that's kind of where the big controversy and big moment of this movie is people going to like you got to stay more true to your roots, you got to be more talk about the folk stuff, do folk music, don't do, hard rock. Don't do that. Stay there, more true there. And it's about him playing at this folk festival there. And it's like, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna stick to his formula there of playing folk music, or is he gonna do more of his newer stuff? That's kind of the big, climax of the movie is that what Bob Dylan is gonna do. But if you know, obviously, Bob Dylan and his music, you know what he obviously ended up doing there. And yeah, Bob Dylan, very legendary, iconic musician there, with his music. I'm a big fan of his music as well. And the movie's also hoping on that because they do a lot of singing in this. Timothy Chalamet did learn how to play guitar. He was training for, I believe he said 2 years. He has a great interview with Nardwar. If people don't know that, if you go on YouTube, Nardwar, great interviewer, great researcher there. And he details a lot of what he kind of went through to play the role of Bob Dylan. And I think he said, yeah, he practiced playing guitar for about 2 years. Also, Bob Dylan, being such a kind of a big figure, he gets parodied quite a bit, especially the way he sings and the way he talks. Bob Dylan, he kind of talks like this. He has that kind of nasally, graspy kind of
Yeah.
voice that he has. And Timothy Chalamet does that in it. He does that to the point where there's some points in the movie where when it gets later into the movie, I could not understand a fucking word he was saying. Like I was like, I need some subtitles with this heavy. And as much as it is about the kind of Bob Dylan and his music and what he went through for his art, it's also about. I think the main point of it is also a love story. It's a love story between him going between these two women. The two women being Joan Baez, who was a famous folk musician in her own right as well, and then also who's played by this Monica Barbara Barbaro, is her name there, who plays Joan Baez. She was in Top Gun Maverick. She was
Mhm.
the female character in that, and then also his other love interest in this, Sylvia, who was his longtime girlfriend, who is played by Elle Fanning in this. And so it's really mainly kind of a love story and how he's between these two women and kind of going back and forth, and how he's inspired by both of them. It doesn't do the biopic thing of like how like in some biopics where like in like Bohemian Rhapsody. He's like, I'm hearing this beat in my head. I can't get it out. And then it's like, oh, it's We Will Rock You. And they do that. Like they don't do anything like that in it. There's
Thank God.
obviously there's some moments where, he's he's writing down or he's playing on the piano, he's playing his guitar, and it's like, "Oh, this sounds pretty good." And then it becomes Blowing in the Wind or The Times Are a Changing or Like a Rolling Stone, but it's not made like a big deal out of, anything like that, in the way of kind of like how hacky it was done in Bohemian Rhapsody. Timothée Chalamet, we saw him do a great performance here in beginning of the year as Paul Atreides in the Dune movie. He's been turning in a lot of great performances there, even in something like Wonka, who I thought Wonka was okay, but I thought he
Mhm.
was the best thing in Wonka. I thought he was really good in that. He really stretches himself and does a lot of great projects here, and I think he's good in this. I think he is great in this role in this performance. Probably good Oscar bait there. Oscars love when people play real life figures. So he probably he'll probably get nominated for best actor in this because I mean, hey, he's doing a lot. He's playing guitar, he's singing, he's doing the voice of Bob Dylan. He's doing all that, so I can imagine he'll get nominated for this, and I mean, I think he would deserve it. Um, you also have a good supporting cast. I mentioned his 2 love interests, but you have people like Edward Norton, who's playing Pete Singer in this. You also have, Scoot McNairy, who plays Woody Garth in this, but he's playing Woody Garth in the stage of his life where he's pretty sick, so he can't really speak too much. So it's a lot of a physical performance there for him. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, a solid biopic film, I would say there. It's not one of the better ones I've seen. It's okay. Like you mentioned, James Mangold, who kind of set the template there for a lot of these films, with Walk Hard. I think turns in another kind of great film here about a figure and,
Mhm.
getting into Bob Dylan. It doesn't get too in depth there, but I think it does just enough. So for me, I would give it a tune in. I give it a solid tune in.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Bob Dylan album?
Um, Album, no, but I do like I like him pre when he is mostly folk, and then I do like him post folk rock, which like a Rolling Stone is basically when he became more rock, folk rock enabled.
Mm, yeah. And seeing this movie, A Complete Unknown, it did make me want to go back and watch this movie. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I'm Not There, which was the movie from '07. And this is more of a experimental kind of look at Bob Dylan. Like, it has various actors playing
Mhm.
Bob Dylan at different stages of his career. You have like Blanchett who's playing Bob Dylan in like his main stay, like in the '60s, and then you have like you see Heath Ledger is also in this. I think Richard Gere is also in this as well. Um, yeah, so it kind of makes me want to kind of go back and see something like this because of what it kind of did, as far as kind of how weird and experimental it kind of was there. Did you ever see this movie?
I did once. Yeah, it's very experimental for the time, but I think probably is more well liked now than maybe when it came out,
Mm,
because at least it's very different. It does feel very what Bob Dylan is more for, which is just going for it, going a little crazy out there, more less Hollywoodified. Because this one, the one that just came out now, the a complete unknown, I could easily see people being like, it's a little too commercial for Bob Dylan, a little too
mm,
Hollywoodified.
yeah. But yeah, this came out, yeah, '07. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so just a plain tune in for me for A
Nice.
Complete Unknown. Yeah,